Welcome to Boxing During Dinner. We're back here at Randazzo's Little Italy here in Coral Gables, Florida.
Yes.
And for those that don't know, Coral Gables is in Miami, so if you come to Miami, you could come here.
Yeah.
It's not a different...
subdivision. It's a neighborhood.
Yeah, it's a suburb. So, David, we promise you guys that we're going to talk all Canelo, Mayweather, all the time, and a little Matisse Garcia, but we want to start off the show by talking about another passing in boxing, and it seems that it's been happening way too much the last couple of years. Tommy Morrison was one of my favorite fighters at one point because the guy was pure action. Not one of his fights was dull, and Morrison passed away. Complications from HIV. He had it for a long time, and he was only 44 years old, which was the thing that shocked me the most. You kind of lost track in the whole Tommy Morrison saga how young this guy still was, but from what we read in the days prior, he had been suffering for a long time, and I guess now he's resting.
It's the age thing was interesting to me too. You mentioned 44 years old, and that's a young way to go. The guy was diagnosed with HIV when he was 27 years old, and to put that in perspective, you think of all the people in that age range, and that's a really young point. It's never a good time to get that diagnosis, but
no.
For 17 years, Evander Holyfield's still pursuing fights at the age of 50. Tommy Morrison, for all intents and purposes, 44.
Bernard Hopkins, a champion at almost 50.
So Tommy Morrison, despite his diagnosis, and this is something it's a conversation for another day, but did fight as recently as 2006 and then again in 2007. Is a guy who brought a lot of excitement to the heavyweight division and to the Rocky series.
That's Tommy Gunn.
Tommy Gunn. And I think that's how a lot of the general public might remember him. But for the hardcore boxing fan, will remember him as a slugger who came to fight.
Right,
and was definitely an underrated boxer. Not the technician that he should have been given credit for. Victories over guys like George Foreman. That's a career for anybody to be proud of.
Yeah, and people remember that knockout loss to Ray Mercer, but he was beating Mercer up to that point. He was looking great in that fight, and it was
the real guy he lost to was Lennox Lewis, and he's had 3 losses on his
Michael
resume.
Bent.
Michael Bent, but outside of that, he beat everybody.
So rest in peace, Tommy Morrison. But we're here to talk about the fight that everybody's been waiting for: Ishe Smith against Carlos Molina.
Your favorite fighter coming back into the ring.
But no, September 14th, Canelo and Floyd were days away. David, I feel we've been talking about this fight for months. When it all started, that we swore that it wasn't going to happen. I was almost betting my house that Canelo was going to fight Cotto,
and then Mayweather was going to fight
anybody, Matisse, and in fact the week before
Devin Alexander,
the week before the fight got signed, David, we had Kieran Mulvaney on the show, and Kieran's giving himself more shit than anybody. We didn't. We love Kieran. We would never give Kieran any crap, but. Kieran came on the show and we were talking about the possibilities for Floyd Mayweather, since there was almost a certainty that Canelo would fight Cotto. And we were mentioning Alexander, Matisse, like you said. And a week later, he signs to fight Mayweather, and Kieran sending us an email asking if we could redo the show. Obviously joking around. Kieran would never ask for anything on the record to be taken down. But yeah, the fight got made, and since then it's been all Canelo Mayweather. And David, I haven't been this excited for a fight in a long time. My brother put it in perspective in very simple terms. When you're about to watch a boxing fight and the action's building up and you're watching it and the bell rings and you say, holy shit, I can't believe I'm about to watch this fight. It's finally happening. That's how I'm going to feel when the bell rings on September 14th.
I've already been plotting where I want to be sitting. I'm actually going to be watching the fight with a fan of ours, Daniel Placeres, at his place. But I'm already thinking of the whole ambiance, and you said it best, that those few moments leading up to the fight, the voices of the announcers, the crowd, Jimmy Lennon Jr. is going to be coming into the ring announcing the entrance for both of these guys, and you're going to see them in the same ring at the same time. And nothing compares, I think, in all of sports to those moments right before a prize fight.
Incredible.
An incredible statistic, and there are many already. One, that they've already shattered the record in the history of boxing for live gate at $19 million. That's a stat. But today, it was revealed the guaranteed purses that both of these guys are making. A combined $54 million. The largest guarantee ever in boxing was Floyd Mayweather's in his last fight, and he made $32 million. He's making $41.5 million guaranteed for this fight before pay-per-view. Canelo Alvarez is making $12.5 million guaranteed before pay-per-view.
And it's not chump change.
and these guys haven't even, heard the first bell, and these guys are going to, cash out. The exciting part for fight fans, of course, is not that these guys are getting paid and that we're paying part of it by pay-per-view,
right.
But it's the fact that these guys are going to actually get in there and trade punches.
Yeah, and it's a fight everybody wants to see. I've had non-boxing fans. I wear my Canelo Mayweather shirt all the time, and fans come up to me in the street and tell me how excited they are to watch this fight. And David, as part of my job outside of obviously boxing during dinner, this I do have a real job,
really?
And I had the chance, the pleasure of covering this fight a little closer than most, and I had the chance to go up to Big Bear for an interview with Canelo Alvarez. And what shocked me the most about this kid, and I guess it was a pleasant surprise, how calm and collected this guy is. Not only is he calm for this fight and isn't the least bit nervous, he believes in himself. He believes he could go out and win. And he does it in this very calm, soothing manner, the way he talks. It's not like Robert Guerrero, who you could tell he was trying to psych himself into the fight by talking a little trash and and then once the fight started, you could tell right away he was like, holy crap, I'm fighting Floyd Mayweather, I'm Robert Guerrero, I'm looking for the upset. I agree that I believe that Canelo Alvarez believes wholeheartedly that he could win this fight and that he is going to win this fight and that he belongs as much as Floyd Mayweather does inside that ring. Whether the fans out there right now, but he's crazy, because fans will watch this and, they make up their own mind, and I'm not saying one thing or another. Floyd Mayweather Jr. is the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, no denying. He's probably the best fighter in the last 20 years, since he's been doing it. One of the most talented fighters of all time. But I think this is as tough a fight for Floyd Mayweather as he's ever had. Yep. I don't agree. I don't think this is going to be he's not going to walk over him. It's not going to be an easy fight for Floyd Mayweather. This will be the toughest challenge Floyd Mayweather's had in possibly his entire career.
Imagine for a second, though, that he does outclass Canelo.
Which could happen, because he's a great fighter, and great fighters do that.
Here's the thing.
Really quick to your point, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but this goes along.
He hasn't done it in a while. In his
defense,
done it in a while.
Okay. This goes along with what you're saying right now. The possibility of Mayweather outclassing him. The last time I thought Mayweather was going to be in a tough battle like this was against Diego Corrales.
Yep.
And it was the most dominating performance of Floyd Mayweather's career to date.
Yep.
Because of the two undefeated fighters. Corrales was a great fighter at the time, and he just walked through him. But I don't think this will be the case now, especially not at 37 years old.
There have been a lot of interesting things that come out of Mayweather's camp, and I would hate to ever sound like an avid Mayweather's fanboy, if you will. But Floyd Mayweather Sr., his trainer for this fight, or the lead trainer for this fight, has been talking about the fact that he's watched one of Canelo's fights and feels like he knows what he needs to know. And that is, this is a guy who gets tired in fights and doesn't even get hit to the body. Imagine that if Mayweather develops a body attack, that he feels like this fight is not going to make it the distance. And that's something that has probably been the most surprising news coming out of Mayweather's camp, is that Mayweather is going for a knockout. Not something you hear often. He's talking about a guy who plans to fight 12 rounds, and if a knockout comes, it comes. And Floyd Mayweather Sr. also echoing that sentiment, that he not only is hoping a knockout comes, but expects that Canelo is not going to be able to keep up with the pace and the body attack for 12 rounds. It's an interesting sight, a thing to think of. Until these guys actually get into the ring, it's anybody's guess into how it actually plays out. I think you're a fool if you come out and say Canelo's going to somehow outclass Mayweather, not to take away anything from Canelo, but because Floyd Mayweather has gotten into the ring 44 times, as he loves to tell everybody,
right.
and no one's figured out that blueprint. You have to bet in favor of Floyd Mayweather every time he steps in the ring until proven otherwise.
Absolutely, and this is a fighter, and we mentioned Hopkins earlier when we were talking about Tommy Morrison. This is a fighter who's up there in age, I guess, for a fighter. 'Cause, sure. 37 is by no means old for regular, Even
Well,
being
he's 36. He will be 37 soon.
You know, almost 37. I'm 33, and I don't think I'm an old man. But if I were a boxer, I'd be getting up there. Floyd Mayweather Jr. keeps in shape at all times. I've never seen Floyd Mayweather out of fighting shape. And that's something you don't see often, and that's what makes him great. The logic tells you that Mayweather's going to get in there and eventually will outbox Canelo. To the point that if you ask me right now, Armando, your prediction, what kind of fight do you expect? Watch the Miguel Cotto fight. That's the fight I expect. I expect Mayweather to win by decision, but I expect him to be in a tough fight. Will his nose get bloody? Possibly. You know, but then again, with all due respect to Miguel Cotto, Saul Canelo Alvarez is no Miguel Cotto. And I say this because Cotto, when he fought Floyd Mayweather, you could say was a damaged fighter. He had already fought great fights against Shane Mosley, Zab Judah, had to go through the Margarito experience with the loaded gloves, got beat up by Pacquiao after that fight. This guy has never been beat up. He's a young kid. He's 23 years old. He's young. He's strong. He's hungry. He's undefeated. Floyd Mayweather does have a point. How many world champs has he beaten, et cetera, et cetera. Then again, he's only 23 years old.
Right.
I mean, he built a career with no amateur experience. Well, a little bit of amateur experience, but at 15 years old, this guy was debuting in the pros. And in his last fight, whether you believe he won or not, or was just an edge of a win, he did beat Austin Trout, who was a full 154-pounder, a great fighter, the Winky Wright, if you could say so, of this generation.
I like that.
And he beat him. And you can't say that, I don't know, you can't say that Mayweather's just going to, that Canelo could outclass Mayweather, but you can't also say it's going to be a walk in the park, because he's fighting a bigger guy for the first time in a long time, and it's a guy that could do damage with both hands. And if Mayweather Sr. is saying that he's going to go in for the knockout, he's playing right into his hands. We saw what happened with Abner Mares and Johnny Gonzalez.
I think what we're talking about here is Floyd Mayweather jabbing, boxing, moving, and hitting Canelo to the body to the point where he breaks down.
But
how is that fight?
How is that any different than what he usually does? I mean, if they say they're going to go for the knockout, that means go for the knockout. The knockout comes eventually,
sure,
like he did against Ricky
Matisse has a different knockout plan than Floyd Mayweather does.
Exactly.
I think we're talking about the belief that Canelo is not a conditioned fighter, never has been a conditioned fighter, and also hasn't been tested to the body. To an extent, I want to speak back to your point on Miguel Cotto, and this is not the fanboy Miguel Cotto in me speaking, but I think the person who learned more from the Miguel Cotto fight is not Canelo Alvarez, it's Floyd Mayweather. And that is, you have to understand that when you're in with a guy who's got the size, and for all intents and purposes, Canelo and Miguel Cotto probably have similar body types. Let's not say the same, but tactic-wise also probably employing a similar strategy, across fights. And these guys are, combination punchers who do try to go to the body. But I think Floyd Mayweather knows better than to try to get into that kind of fight now with a young, hungry lion like Canelo Alvarez, as he likes to call him, the young, hungry lion. But that may not be up to him. Canelo is deceptively quick. Ask any opponent who's gotten in the ring with him, and his speed does trump Miguel Cotto's. I think that's the bigger story here, is, not necessarily that the Cotto fight somehow shows that Mayweather is vulnerable against a similar attack, or that Canelo will have more success. These are two different fighters in a different scenario. But I think that Mayweather's, learned what he can and can't get away with when he's in with a bigger guy. You're going to see a smart, sharp, body-attacking Floyd Mayweather in this fight. But Canelo Alvarez is a hell of a combination puncher. He's not a knockout puncher and with one-punch power type of sense, but he's a hell of a combination puncher that wears guys down with that brute attack that just, they can't get away from. It's a very fascinating fight.
And what's also fascinating, David, and you expect to see it fight after fight, but with fighters like Mayweather and Hopkins, it's tougher because, like I said, they are guys that are in shape. However, I remember a guy named Roy Jones who was also in shape. I do think he was damaged after he went up in weight, full muscle weight, had to lose it to fight Antonio Tarver, and that contributed a little to the knockout. But you saw what happens when a fighter loses this much of his reflexes.
Yep.
And he's expecting to dodge a punch with this movement, and instead they're like a thousandth of a second.
Yep.
Less quick, and he gets popped with a punch. And this guy, Canelo, like he said, he's a big kid. And, he's been doing damage and sparring, which, doesn't say much. He's supposed to beat up on sparring partners, but he is a big puncher. So for Mayweather, if it's not the hardest fight of his career, it's the most interesting because of because of everything that surrounds this fight.
Right.
The age, the young guy, the confident guy against another confident guy. And speaking of confidence, for those that have been watching Showtime All Access, which has been absolutely
Incredible.
fabulous. I mean, kudos to Showtime once again. They're doing an absolutely great job. But for Floyd Mayweather, the cocky, confident guy who fight after fight says, I'm gonna win, you know, I'm whooping everybody. It's a little bit of the Floyd promoter, but he's never you know, he's always quick to say how good of a young fighter Canelo is, how he's the next in line, etc., etc. Kind of like if he's covering all his bases, saying as much as the 99.999% in me that says he's gonna, like, I'm gonna win, there's always that little chance that this may be the guy to do it.
I don't get that impression. But, you know, it's interesting to look at all the subplots around it. And Canelo Alvarez has made a point that I think is also interesting, maybe ties to this. He says, you know, of course I haven't fought, you know, all of these world champions that Mayweather has and everything. He goes, but Floyd Mayweather was exactly where I am right now at one point in his career, with an opportunity to rise to the occasion. The big X factor here is people know what to expect from Floyd Mayweather because we've seen it against a number of different opponents over the course of 17 years. What we don't know is what Canelo Alvarez is capable of doing when he's brought to that level of competition. We saw a glimpse of it when he fought Austin Trout and delivered a performance that I don't think anyone expected him to put in. Like you said, whether it was by a point or two or not, according to your scorecard, he won that fight and he made adjustments to do it. He's the only guy I can think of who's fought Mayweather in recent memory that knows how to make in-fight adjustments, and that alone makes it so compelling, because if Mayweather does take an early lead, that's not to say Canelo's not going to find a way to make his way back into the fight later, and that's never been the case before, when Mayweather usually takes over in the later rounds and no one catches him.
Well, I can't believe it's already been past the 15 minutes that
go.
we usually record, and we're not even going to get to talk about the Matisse-Garcia
No, but
fight.
there's good news. Tell them what happens next week.
Well, next week we're going to read your comments on the show, so you can write to us on our Facebook. You can look us up, facebook.com, Boxing During Dinner. We're at Box During Dinner on Twitter. You can also look us up on Instagram, which we're gonna fully activate
We'll
this
start
week.
doing more of that.
And you know, I could you know, take some pictures during fight week because I'll be out there.
But we're also going to give our official predictions next week too, which will be important for you.
Even though we gave you a little glimpse of it, but it will be a fun fight week, and for those that are gonna be out there, please write to me. I'd like to meet some of you. But you know, for the Mayweather fans, he's a great fighter, one of the best, and logic tells everybody that he should win this fight. But there always exists that gut feeling, man, and I don't know why I get that gut feeling this is gonna be a great fight. Maybe we're in for a surprise. Who knows? It surely won't be a bad thing for boxing.
Can't wait.